Hi, good morning, church family. This is Pastor Charles here, and I'm going to do something I've never done before. I was encouraged to, actually, an idea that Susanna Valdez had when she was our ministry assistant here. She says you should do something a few times a week and call it Coffee with PC, because I like my coffee, and I have my coffee with me here. Of course, you might not be noticing the coffee as much as you're noticing my Star Wars mug. Another thing I like, this morning I'm drinking dark Guatemalan. It's coffee I order online from Steep and Brew. Very good. I like Guatemalan coffee. Reminds me of when we went to Guatemala for our mission trip several years ago and toured the coffee plantation and got some coffee right off the plantation. Really good. Just finishing up my last cup this morning, but I didn't get on here, and I don't think the idea was to talk about coffee, although I do like it, and we'll share some of that with you as well. But to talk about some things in Scripture that might encourage us. And given what we're dealing with right now, given the reality of coronavirus, given the problems that we have in our world surrounding that, the people that are ill and the spread of that, it seems like as good a time as any to try something new. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to do this a few times a week. And, one of the things I want to point out for us as a church is it's unusual, not just because of the realities from the pandemic, because of the realities of what it means for us as members of this church. Scripture encourages us, Hebrews 10:25, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together. Instead, we need to get together because we need to encourage one another. But right now, we're not getting together. We're not assembling on Sundays for corporate worship. We've actually thought the wisest course of action was to follow the recommendations of those who study these things and to maintain, as they call it, social distancing, to not have that many people in a confined space. And so, yes, we're streaming the service and some music. Yes, we're doing that. It's not the same as getting together, and we felt that. I felt that Sunday. Maybe you're going to feel it if you're part of one of our small groups. And sure, we're going to try to use technology through Zoom and have those virtual meetings where you can connect and see and talk to each other like this through video chat. But it's not the same as being in the same room. It's not the same as being together and that person-to-person thing. So what do we do in the face of that? And here's a thought that occurred to me. If I can make a parallel, if I can bring another passage that doesn't talk about the church, but talks about something else that might inform us of how we should go forward as the church. It's actually Paul's writing in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 5. Let me just read the verse to you. It says this: do not deprive each other. It's talking about marriage, talking about husbands and wives. I think you can figure out the context, what he means. Do not deprive each other, except perhaps by mutual consent and for a time. And this is the key. This is where I really want to focus on. He says, don't do that. But if that's the case, by mutual consent and for a time, this is what you should do. So that, for the purpose of, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. And I think that's a good encouragement for us. Again, I'm making kind of a parallel. Maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but I don't think it's ever a stretch to say in the midst of something like that, we can pray. We should pray. And dare I say, we must pray. We're in a spot like I don't think anybody's ever been in. I don't even the most senior of our church folks probably don't remember a time when these sorts of things were the reality. And so we find ourselves, maybe you're not as busy or you're not working right now because of the realities of the tourists that have been asked to leave the Keys, or maybe you're one of our senior adults and some of your normal activities, you're not able to go to those because you're isolating yourself, protect yourself. You don't want to go out as much. And a lot of us probably have a little more free time on our hands. So what can we do? We can do exactly what Paul tells husbands and wives to do in 1 Corinthians 7. We can devote ourselves to prayer. What I want to do is encourage you to pray. Along with this video, I'm going to put up a 7-day prayer guide that Lifeway published. Lifeway's used to be the Baptist Sunday School board that we use for like our curriculum for things. But they put out a 7-day prayer guide, and I'm going to ask you to use it. It's 7 different areas, 7 different things you can pray for. And maybe you'll do one a day, but maybe you want to, in the sense of devoting ourselves to prayer, maybe you'd set aside a few minutes, a minute or to an hour, for 7 hours every day and pray for each one of these things, so that every day you're praying for these 7 things. Because while we can't meet together, while we're choosing to, I should say, forsake the assembling, let's devote ourselves to prayer. Let's seek after God because He is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in time of trouble. And so I encourage you, along with this, we'll try to check in through this way, just some encouragement this morning as we get together, Coffee with PC as we call it, and ultimately pray. We pray to God. We ask Him for His grace. We ask Him for His mercy.